Okay, so we're going to talk about ellipses today, section 4 from chapter 10. Just like with parabolas, you can have a horizontal ellipse or a vertical ellipse. And an ellipse is like an oval. The technical term would be an ellipse. If it's horizontal, it's going to be bigger horizontally. And if it's vertical, it'll be bigger vertically. We have the two equations here. X minus h squared over a squared plus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. For vertical, you have x minus h squared over b squared plus y minus k squared over a squared equals 1. The things you need to note, first off, all ellipse equations are adding. You have to have a plus sign. Also, all ellipse equations equal 1 at the end. If they don't equal 1, then it's not a complete equation. Also, A is the bigger number always. B is the smaller number. We use words like major and minor. Major meaning bigger to describe A, minor meaning smaller to describe B. We call it the major axis or the minor axis. So the major axis would be the bigger axis. That's the whole line that goes across. So if A is under your X, then X will be bigger, which is why it's horizontal. If A is under your Y, then your Y will be bigger and it will be vertical. And your minor axis is the smaller one. So here your X is longer, that's the major axis. Your Y is shorter, that's your minor. A is under X, B is under Y. So A is major, B is minor. Same thing over here. The length, this part is A, from the center out, and then from the center out, this part is A. So your major axis is 2A. Same thing for B. Your minor, this part is B, this part is B, from your center out in both directions. So if it asks you, or if it tells you your major axis is this length, they're really telling you that it's 2A or 2B. Major axis 2A, minor axis 2B. With the parabola, you had a focus point, which is the point that your graph bends around. For the ellipse, you will have two focus points, and we call them foci. The plural of focus is foci. Because we have two parts that the graph will bend. So if we look at this example here up top, it's bending here and here. So we would have two focus points, or two foci. They'll always be on the major axis. They'll be on the longer one. And they'll always be C away from the center. So your major axis would be A, away from your center here. Your B is your minor axis. Your minor axis would be B units away from your center. And then your focus, if this is your center, would be C units away. And we can find C. C squared is A squared minus B squared. Your center is HK. This is the center. You're going to have 4 vertice points, 2 on each end of your axes. Your major axis would be A. We're adding and subtracting A. We're going to have 2 points, add and subtract. When you add, you get 1 point. When you subtract, you get 2 points. Your co-vertices are going to be your smaller, the endpoints of your smaller axis, and that's B from the center. So if we look at this picture here, we can see the horizontal on the left, vertical on the right. Your equation, your general equation here, what I like to think about is ellipses are pluses, so your C equation is a minus. These are always opposite. Be careful with your C equation for an ellipse. It's close to the Pythagorean theorem, but it is not the same thing. Your center is HK. Your vertices, we're adding A because A is bigger. In this case, because A is under X, we're adding it to the X. The B is under Y, so we're adding it to the Y. The co-vertices here, we're adding and subtracting B to the Y component. Also, note, in the equation, it's A squared and B squared, but we're adding A and B to find the vertices, not squares, so be careful with that. We have the same thing over here in vertical ellipse. Your equation, your A squared is under your Y, which is how we know it's vertical because your bigger number is under Y. Your center is HK. Your vertices, you're adding A to your K because your Y is bigger. And your co-vertices, you're adding and subtracting B because B is under the Y, A is under the X. Your foci, we're adding and subtracting C because we always add it to, if it's vertical, we add it to the Y. If it's horizontal, we add it to the X. So here we're adding it to Y because it's vertical. Over here in horizontal, we're adding it to the X. So we have some length major length, the bigger length A. We have our smaller length B. Our length from our center to our foci is C. Center is HK. And we have 4 vertice points. 2 major vertices and 2 co-vertices or minor vertices. So example 1 says find the center, foci, and length of the major and minor axis and graph. I can tell A squared is 36 because that's a bigger number. The bigger number is under Y, so I know this is going to be vertical. And then I can find my center, which is HK, or 1, -3. We're going to do the opposite of what's in the parentheses. Instead of saying major vertices and minor vertices, I like to call them V sub X and V sub Y. So my Vx are going to be my X vertices. I'm going to be adding and subtracting to my X. I'm going to add my B to my X. Keep in mind that your equation 16, this is B squared, but B equals 4. I'll write that over here. And 36 is A squared, but A equals 6. So for X, because the 16 is under the X, I'm going to add and subtract the square root of that, or 4, to the X part. We get 3. We could write this out if we wanted as 1 plus 4 is 5, -3. And I'm going to fix that. And 1 minus 4 is -3, -3. For our major vertices, or our V sub Y as I'm going to call them, we're going to add and subtract the Y part, the A, to the Y part. So we're going to say 1, -3 plus or minus 6. Again, making sure that you're using the square root and not the actual number that is given. And we can simplify this to be 1, -3 plus 6 is +3. And -3 minus 6 is -9. Now you could write your vertices with the plus and minus, because this tells me there are 2 points, one for a plus and one for a minus, or you could write it out in 2 separate ones. It's totally up to you. I don't care which one you do. We also need to find the foci. Because my bigger number is under my Y, I'm going to add my C to the Y part to find the foci. So I'm going to say 1, my Y part is -3 plus or minus whatever my C value is. But I have to find C. C squared equals A squared minus B squared. And A squared is 36. And B squared is 16. These are given in the problem. So C squared equals 20. And then I want to find c, so I'm going to square root both sides, and keeping it in radical form, c will equal 2 root 5. If you want to change this to a decimal, you can. That's totally fine. Or you can keep it in simplest radical form. But writing root 20 is not going to be good enough. You're going to have to write 2 root 5 or write it as a decimal. If you want to write it as a decimal, we can bring up the calculator here. And I can say negative 3, plus 2 root 5 is 1.47. So we'll add that in. 1, 1.47. And then your second one, pulling this up, we would get negative 3 minus 2 root 5. Which gives you negative 7.47. And again, you don't have to put it in decimal form. You could leave it as simplest radical form. Either way works. You could also keep it as 1 point with a plus or minus, indicating there are really 2 points, or you can separate them out. So now we found the center, we found the foci, we found our vertices, v sub x and v sub y. If we want to find the length of the major axis, that is 2a, and we know a is 6, so that was going to be 12. If we want to know the minor axis, that is 2b, and we found b already is 4, so that would be 8. So the total length between vertices for your major, in this case for your y, is 12, and then your minor would be, your x would be 8. So I'm going to graph the center, 1, negative 3. I'm going to graph my vertices. What I like to do is my b is 4. My b is under my x. So I'm going to go 4 to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 4 to the left from my center, 1, 2, 3, 4. And those are my co-vertices, or my v sub x. You'll also notice 5, negative 3, it would be this point here, and negative 3 is this point over here. So you can use the points you wrote out, or you could just move a and b away. Going up, a, which is 6, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's 7, 8, and 9. I'm going to connect my 4 vertices now. And I'm going to try to do a good job on the computer. It's kind of hard, and I'm not great at graphing. It's much easier to do on pencil. And last up, I'm going to add in the foci, 1, 1.47. So that's about 1.5. And then negative 7.47. So that's about 7.5. I'm going to have you label everything. Label your foci. Label your center. You don't need to worry about labeling your vertices. That's fine. And this is how we've found all of our stuff, and we've graphed our first ellipse. So continue on to part 2 of the videos.